that brings us to the issue of the minimum wage, which of course is part of what you have in your burning economic issue. Labour is asking for 30,000 naira, and the president, of course, has agreed to send the minimum wage bill to the National Assembly, and today we'll have the proposal sent to the National Economic Council. Now, if this 30,000 naira is approved and implemented, what will be the implications for domestic commodities market and inflation?
Okay, so we know that, both the executive and the legislative arms of government are doing their best to implement this this minimum wage. The president has sent it to the National Assembly, like you said. They're sending to the National Economic Council for more consultations. They've set up a technical committee for consultations and sustainability of this increase. And now, with increased money supply comes increased inflation. That is an economic theory that holds most times. So we expect that minimum wage implementation would have a negative impact on inflation in the near term, and that is a major factor for any analyst outlook into 2019 inflation. And so that would feed into commodity prices, inflation. Consumers should start to hedge against that.
Okay, now having seen a year-on-year inflation go higher, the year-on-year inflation going higher, month-on-month inflation coming down, what do you think the CBN and its Monetary Policy Committee will do next week by the time they meet? And this is the first one for the year.
Yeah, so definitely the concerns will be the rise in inflation, if the US Fed keeps increasing interest rates. But to a large extent, while these are important factors, the main factor that drives our belief to think that they would hold monetary policy parameters at status quo is that it's the last meeting before the elections. So to a large extent, regardless of the factors, yes, the concerns will be there, the rise in inflation will be a concern, but we believe that it's 5%, there's an 5% probability that they will maintain status quo on all monetary parameters.
Okay, and then another downer, which you pointed out in your slide there, is the power output, which is down by 156.86 megawatts per hour. Could you explain the reason for this?
Okay, so the main reason on that day for the decline in output was gas constraints accounted for about 90% of total constraints. It was over 2,000 megawatts per hour. So that is, gas constraints, yes, has always been a problem, but now we're seeing it at higher levels than before. So definitely that is negatively impacting on the output. And when you hear news about the Mambila power project that is being stalled over some squabbles and everything, it's really discouraging for what power output would say in the future, because that project can increase output by at least 3,000 megawatts per hour. So, but the major reason for that decline was because of gas constraints.
And how much of this fed into the inflation numbers that we're seeing?
Okay, so that power output decline is a day decline. So it's for January the 15th, and the inflation that we saw yesterday was for December. So maybe to feed into the one for January, but definitely not for the one we just saw yesterday for December.
Okay. Now, one of the goodies, of course, according to your slide, is the higher oil price. But should we check, considering the external factors that drive the price of that commodity?
So definitely, oil markets right now are very pessimistic. The oil market is very pessimistic, and we see a lot of international bodies reducing their forecasts. We've seen Goldman Sachs, HSBC, EIA just released a significant downward revision of their 2019 forecast. So it's definitely not worth sharing too much, but at least it's worth celebrating that we are at $60 right now, and that's like our budget benchmark. So we can celebrate a little, but it's definitely, I don't think it's sustainable. And we've seen the US output to increase. The report that came out last week, the output increased to about 12 million barrels per day. So there's US output concerns, there's demand slowdown in economic growth concerns. So it's not worth celebrating for too long, but you can celebrate just a little.
No, but if we see the prices going down perhaps further because of some of these issues that you have mentioned, what would that mean for us basically in the short to medium term?
So definitely, if it goes down, it's like a double-edged sword because we still pay subsidies. So we would cheer on the side of our subsidies are reducing, but there will be no savings to our excess crude account. External reserves might feel the impact. So it's a double-edged sword. They can celebrate a little the fact that it's going down, but it's mostly bad for Nigeria if oil prices go down because we are a largely oil-dependent economy. So.
And for you guys as research analysts, what's your own focus when it comes to oil price? Where do you think 2019 will leave this commodity?
So definitely we are pessimistic. We're on the side of the international bodies. So we see around $60 to $65 per barrel. We are definitely far away off from the peak of 85. We are not going to see that for a long time to come, but let's look at $60 to $65 average for 2019.
And looking at the domestic commodities market, what is your outlook for the short and medium term?
Okay, so the domestic commodities is definitely something that we know for sure would impact on commodity prices is minimum wage review. The things that could impact on it is if we see flooding when the rainy season comes, if we see, more pastoral crises, herdsmen crisis, if that could affect our outputs and increase commodity prices. So there are things that we know for sure would impact commodity prices, and there are things that could, which we don't know what will happen. We don't know if the flooding this year would be as bad as it was last year. So those are the probabilities.
But talking about flooding affecting perhaps, agriculture, basically, is there anything you think the federal government can actually do to contain that?
So definitely a drainage system is something that we've heard, but it seems like nothing is being done about it. We know for sure that it's because our drainage systems are poor. So it's time before we get to the rainy season in July and we start complaining of the impact it's having on commodity prices. It is time now for the government to improve the drainage system so that we don't have this flooding crisis again like we've seen in previous years.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Temitope. Temitope Olubile is one of the research analysts with Financial Derivatives Company.